Returning to running after an injury can be a confusing and frustrating process, especially if you are recovering from an injury and you start to have pain when you get back into running. However, there is acceptable pain levels and unacceptable pain levels when you are running after an injury and during the recovery process. That's what we're going to discuss today. In my last video, I talked about how to develop a training program when you are coming back from an injury and how to incorporate run walks and everything like that. However, today we're going to talk about what happens when you are in that run walk phase, in that return to running phase, and you start to have pain again or a flare up of your injury. And honestly, this can happen to runners, whether you are just starting a running program and a very beginner runner, coming back from injury, or anywhere along the way in your training process if you start to have pain. Hey there, I'm Dr. Abby Siler, a physical therapist and runner who loves treating runners and helping them stay running without the drama of injuries. Be sure to watch the end of this video because there is a goldmine of information here if you are dealing with pain as a runner. The return to running phase is an extremely important part of injury rehabilitation and often overlooked, and many therapists discharge their runners before they get to this phase. It is also a time where the injury that you originally have will flare up, and also secondary injuries sometimes rear their ugly heads and need to be managed as well. A critical thing that you need to be aware of is when you are in a return to running phase, you really need to be in tune with your body and able to monitor how your body is responding to a training plan and the training program, as well as the overall volume of load. So the most common way to monitor symptoms is with a pain scale of 0 to 10. And I've linked it up here, shown a picture diagram graphic, and there is a lot of confusion a lot of times with the 0 to 10 pain scale as to what means what. And we refer to this pain scale a lot for the symptoms. So I've also added some descriptors in there on that pain scale that you can see below the numbers. So you have a little bit better idea of what symptoms are acceptable and unacceptable when we start talking about them a little bit later. When you start running again after injury, some symptoms are expected and acceptable to have when you start running again. They are generally acceptable, such as having mild pain during the run and pain and symptoms that subside back to baseline within 24 hours. The way that I advise all runners to know if they are able to continue with your run and continue with the training program is if you're in the safe zone of pain, or a 3 out of 10 pain. Basically what this means is that you feel it, you notice it, but it's not really bothering you at all. And that is what you're feeling during the duration of your run. That is the safe zone. So if you're at a level of 3 out of 10 pain or less during a run, then you are good to go to continue on with the scheduled run that you have, as well as continue to progress with the next run in your training program, as long as your symptoms return to normal or baseline, meaning you don't have any symptoms, within 24 hours. So a quick recap. 2 things have to happen in order for you to keep progressing with your training program and continue your run, and that is less than 3 out of 10 pain, or just barely noticing your discomfort or your symptoms, and your symptoms returning to nothing within 24 hours. Those are the things that you can do, and that's how you know to continue on with your training program. Now, there are symptoms that we need to avoid that are unacceptable and that you need to bring back down the load of the volume and the load of your training if you are experiencing these symptoms. The first thing that's unacceptable is if you have pain at a 6 out of 10 or higher, or in that definitely hurts range. If that's the case, then you need to stop as soon as you hit that 6 out of 10 pain level in a run. You need to stop that run. That is your stopping point, because you have hit above the threshold of what your tissues are able to tolerate. If, however, this pain settles after 24 hours, again, back to baseline with no pain, then you should be good to go to run your next run in another day or so. However, you want to take a step back and go back to the last run that you were able to complete the entire thing of at 3 out of 10 pain or less. So hopefully it was just the run before the one that you just did that caused you to have a 6 out of 10 pain. The second unacceptable response that you are moving too fast or not ready to progress in your training plan is if after 24 hours, your symptoms are still persisting. Even if you only hit that 3 out of 10 pain or less in your run, if you are still having a 3 out of 10 pain or 2 out of 10 pain symptoms after 24 hours, then it's too much on stress on your body and you need to continue at that same level. So you will skip a day, take a day of rest or two. Sometimes it needs two. Make sure your symptoms have settled back down to baseline, and then you're ready to try that run again. And hopefully you won't have the symptoms that last past 24 hours. So if you fall into the unacceptable category during one of your runs, whether it's the 24-hour baseline hasn't returned or the 6 out of 10 pain or higher, all hope is not lost. I promise there is something you can do. You haven't had a huge setback. You're going to get to continue running. We're not going to stop running again. What this just means is that you need to take a step back on the volume to the volume and level that your body was able to tolerate without your symptoms becoming too much. So if you're in week 1 of your run walk program, like we discussed in the last video, and you're able to do 10 minutes of 1 minute on, 1 minute off, and great, no problem, but you go to the next run and you're doing 1 minute on, 1 minute off for 12 minutes, then maybe you need to take a step back and do another 10-minute run. Or the other option is to continue with the 12-minute run total time, but decrease your run time to 30 seconds or 45 seconds and increase your walk time to 1.5 minutes to 1 minute and 15. Play around with it, see what works best and how your body responds best. Similarly, if you are in week 2, you will either take a step back to the previous week and repeat week 1 if you didn't have any symptoms or flare-ups and were in the acceptable pain zone from that first week, or just take a step back, decrease one of your runs, things like that. So you're just going to take a step back if you start to have increased symptoms to get to the level that you're able to do your runs in that acceptable pain zone. However, if you find that you're just stuck and you cannot progress past week 1, or even you do week 1 and you're still having those unacceptable pain symptoms, it's probably a good indicator that even if you passed all of those tests that we did in the first video, that you're not ready to start running yet, or you need a lot more individualized program and something else is still going on. That's when that one-on-one coaching with me can be really beneficial, because we can dive deep and see what's causing you to not be able to get that bare minimum and that starting point of the training plan going. So in my one-on-one coaching, I provide stability, strength, and individualized training plans to get you back to running without pain and without injury, and adjusting that a little bit more with more dedication and making sure that we're doing everything that we need to do to make sure you can get back to running how you want to. In the link below in the description, you can apply for the coaching for one-on-one coaching with me to help get you back on the road, back on the trails running without pain after your injury. I really hope that this helped you guys out with understanding what is acceptable level of pain and what is unacceptable. That's why I usually say most runners, I don't tell them to stop running if they have injury. We just have to adjust to be in that acceptable pain and symptom zone. And this applies to all runners, whether you're returning and recovering from injury like we are in this video, or if you're just dealing with a flare-up of an injury, a previous injury, or very start of an injury, or pain or discomfort of any type of way. In the next video, stay tuned. We're going to discuss what are the most common injuries that are actually going to have to take time away from running for you to do. Like I said just a second ago, most injuries don't require time off from running, but there are certain cases where they are, and that's what we're going to discuss in next week's video. See you then.